Today we are learning about Chapter 7, which is all about social stratification. Let's get started. I'll start with the definition, and that is social stratification is the institutionalization or stabilization of status differences into hierarchical arrangements. Sheesh, that's a mouthful. Let me break it down for you just a little bit better. Social is just means like in the society, and then stratified comes from the root word strata, which means levels or ranks. So social stratification together just means that there are levels or ranks in the social hierarchy, and it might not be equal, it is probably unequal, and so there you go. There are two main ways of looking at social stratification, and that's through the structural functional lens, and then on the other side of the coin is the social conflict theory lens. I'll start by explaining both of these lenses when it comes to social stratification, and then after I'll give my opinion on it. The structural functional position actually defends hierarchies, and what I mean by that is, let's just take jobs for example. So McDonald's worker who is the cashier who just takes your order and then cashes you out. It's a pretty low level, low skill job, and what I mean by low level is it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do it, and it also doesn't pay as well. So basically, a structural functional position would say, hey, there are low-level positions, but there's a certain hierarchy, and the ones at the top, they need to be very specialized. It takes talent and it takes competition. And without that hierarchy, there's no room to kind of grow yourself, and so not all positions are equal. The functional perspective defends the hierarchy, like I said, and says there needs to be a hierarchy, or else any old person that's low level could take the top spot, but that's a bad thing, because there needs to be that competition for that top spot, so the best possible person will occupy it. The most well-trained and the most well-qualified person takes that top spot. The social conflict theory, on the other hand, sees society as a system of conflicting interest groups, and so they're always battling for control and for dominance. And so the social hierarchy that we were talking about, let's just say with jobs, is based on group dominance, and so they basically believe that whoever's at the top is exploiting those low-level people, and they're getting rich off the backs of that McDonald's cashier that's working for like $11 an hour. Whoever has that top spot in the hierarchy is actually exerting their power and dominion over the people below it. So to sum up, conflict theorists believe that inequality comes from the powerful exploiting the less powerful. And so basically, to sum up, these two perspectives are the functionalist believes that the hierarchy is necessary, that we need the hierarchy so we can weed out the people that aren't as qualified, so the most competitive and the most qualified person is in that top spot, and then it trickles down to the less specialized, basically. Now, on the other side of that coin is the conflict theory, which basically says that the hierarchy is based on power, and the only reason that somebody's got that top spot is because they are exerting their power and dominion over the people that aren't as fortunate as them. And so it's actually, I think that the conflict theorist's perspective is actually pretty dangerous, just because there's a lot of, like, as I said in earlier chapters, the conflict theorist comes from Marx, and a lot of Marxists say, get rid of the hierarchy, because the hierarchy is it's the thing that is keeping the people on the bottom at the bottom. And so we'll explain a little later what that means, but I think it's pretty dangerous myself. I tend to take the functionalist perspective just because I think that the hierarchies are largely based on competence. I think that there are some people that use their power over others as a way to exploit them and all that stuff. But I also think that the hierarchies, especially in jobs, are mostly based on competence. You want the best man for the job to be in that position. And so the reason I believe that, I'll just give you an example. So if you live in a town, let's say, and you want an addition to your house, you're going to go to multiple companies, you're going to see the reviews, you're going to ask around town who's the best company to get the job done. And you choose which company is the right one for the job based on all your information. Finally come to a decision on a company to put an addition on your house, and you go with the one that you think is going to be the most competent to get the job done. So like, you wouldn't assume that the company that you pick is only at that spot because they exerted all their power over every other builder in town. You wouldn't assume, at least I wouldn't assume, that the company that you chose to do the addition on your house got their reviews and got to the top of your list by exerting power and control over all the other companies. They got there by doing the best job. I'm not saying that the social conflict theory doesn't have anything to say. I do think that some people get their positions by exerting their power and control over other people, but I think it's mostly based on competence. And if you were to set up a society, you'd want the most competent people in the most specialized and hard roles if you were to set up your own society. As we learned, and what I just mentioned is the social conflict theory obviously came from Karl Marx, and he said the famous line, each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Some Marxist and some social conflict theorists, they think, the hierarchies are the ones that this is producing the conflict. The people at the top are exploiting the people at the bottom. So let's just get rid of the hierarchies. Let's just make everyone equal. And that's kind of what that line means. Each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So social conflict theorists not only believe in equality of opportunity, but they believe in equality of outcome, which basically means that the McDonald's worker who's at the bottom, that's making $10 an hour, that's cashing you out, should make just as much as the CEO, because there shouldn't be a hierarchy. Everybody should be equal. No need for anybody to be higher than anybody in the hierarchy, and that's why it's called social stratification. They just would rather not have any stratification, which it sounds good in theory. Like, you wouldn't want to set up a society where there's people making so much money and then the poor people at the bottom are just, left hanging out to dry. There's a lot of problems with this perspective. One of the reasons is, if there is no hierarchy and there's no way to strive up to the top, then what's the motivation of doing anything? Like, why would anybody fill that CEO spot if it didn't have a higher ranking than those at the bottom? So, why wouldn't I just be a cashier and not have the responsibility and not have as much skills needed if I can just make the same amount as the CEO? So one problem is it absolutely kills motivation. Another example, I think it's used in the book, it's the medical professional example. Like, if there's equality of outcome across the board, why would doctors go to school for 10 years and specialize in something? There would be no point. Without hierarchies, there's no upward mobility. There's no way to strive for something more. I personally believe in equality of opportunity, and that just means that basically no matter your race, religion, or gender, that you have the same opportunities to succeed as anybody else. But equality of outcome, very dangerous idea. And the reason it's a dangerous idea is because whatever you choose to do, no matter how specialized you are in a given field, without that hierarchy and without that striving to go up, well, nobody would fill those top spots. And so I personally believe that you need the hierarchy, because if you don't have a hierarchy of values or a hierarchy of jobs, there's no upward mobility. Like I said, there's no motivation to get to the top, and humans really need that motivation. If everything's equal, it would not be good. It would not be good, because, well, there would be nobody to take those really specialized jobs that take years to succeed in and get good at. Now let's move on to social class. Now in your book, social class is defined as, it's largely a result of your levels of income, by your different levels of occupation and the different levels of education that you attain. Just like I stated with my doctor example, it takes a smart, competent individual with dedication enough to go through medical school and sacrifice all that time to this one goal to get the position of doctor in the first place. If you were to set up a society, you'd probably want those jobs with a high level of specialization to get paid more, to get more reward, because otherwise there would be no incentive to get the job done or get that level of education, and then grandma wouldn't live. Your job, what level of income, and how highly you have been educated are all factors in what social class that you will be able to attain. And that's kind of where you stack up, and that's what the chapter is about, what social stratification, which level you'll be able to be in a given area. Today, to end, I'm actually going to link a crash course sociology for you guys to watch, and what it'll be explaining is global stratification. And this was a little bit in the later pages of the chapter, and it's going over like why there are different theories about why there's poverty. But other than that, I'll link that. It's a short 10-minute video. Please watch it. It does a great job of explaining this last part in your book. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. See you guys next time.